There are three parts in Tanach, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, and that is intimately and intricately connected to Shvuot, because Shvuot, as the Gemara says, is a Zman of Shalosh. Listen to this, and with this we're going to finish. Moshe Rabbeinu is a third child. The Torah is Meshuleshet, meaning it has three parts to it, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. The Gemara continues in Shabbat saying it was given on the third day because it was Shloshim Agbala. There were 3 days of separation. When? In the third month. Sivan, the month that it was given in, is the third month. It was given by which Shevet? Shevet Levi, who is the third of the Shvatim. Moshe Rabbeinu has 3 letters in his name, and Levi has 3 letters in his name, also. The gematria of Moshe is 345, which is divisible by 3, and that's why we also daven 3 tefillot a day. That's why we daven 3 tefillot a day, based, of course, on our 3 Avot HaKadoshim, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, who are the basis of our whole entire Torah. It sounds like 3 seems to play a very merkazi, very fundamental sod in our religion. Of course, we come from Shet, who was one of 3 children, Cain, Hevel, and Shet from Adam Rishon, and we followed up as being a third child when we had Shem, Cham, and Yafet, who came from Noach. We come from Shem, who was a third child. And when the Beit HaMikdash was built by the third king. You had Shalom Melech, David Melech, and then Shlomo Melech, who was a third king. The third king was the one who had the koach, the capabilities of going ahead and building the Beit HaMikdash. Of course, when we want to praise the Kadosh Baruch Hu, we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh 3 times. That's how the Malachim praise the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And when the Kohanim want to give us a bracha, they give us a bracha HaMeshuleshet, a third bracha that is split into 3. Brich Rechmana Diyav Le'Yoyata Betlita. That's what the Gemara on Shabbat Peichet says. That blessed is Hashem that gave us a third Torah, one that is split into the Torah. Now listen to this, incredible gematria. The letters of the Aleph Bet end up being divisible by 3 when you 3 them up. In other words, if you take Aleph Bet Gimel, this is brought in the Mam Loez, by the way, in Sefer Yeshua. When you take Aleph Bet Gimel, that equals the number 6, divisible by 3. You take Daled Hey Vav, that equals 15, which is, of course, divisible by 3. You go to Zayin Chet Tet, that is the gematria, that is 24, which is, of course, divisible by 3. You move on to Yud Chaf and Lamed, that equals 60, and 60 is divisible by 3, Vechen Hala. I won't bore you with the semantics. Al Kopanim, we see there's something very fundamental about this idea of 3, and here's the clincher. Watch this one. We know that Aristotle always held that the earth is in the center of the universe. That's what the position was for 1500 years. The church held of it, and whatever the church says goes. Because the earth obviously makes sense, should be in the center of the universe, because we are the world, pardon the pun. However, Copernicus, as we all know, in the 1500s came around and he wanted to say Nishtazoi. They didn't say Nishtazoi, but he said it's not true. The sun is in the center of the universe. If you work out the mathematics, it makes sense. We all know in the heliocentric universe that we are familiar with, that the sun is always put in the center, and we are just one of 9 planets. Of course, they almost knocked off Copernicus for being a heretic for doing that, and therefore Copernicus had to shut his mouth until he dropped dead, never knowing how much he changed the whole entire universe, literally. Anyways, until Galileo went and he came around and brought it out to the forefront, this concept of Copernicus, that yes, the sun is in the center of the universe. Fantastic. And the question is, Be'emet, it's a good question. Why is the sun in the center of the universe? We are the center of the universe. The whole entire world is Bishvilanu, is created for the Jews, for the Klal Yisrael, for the earth. We should really be. Why did Hashem work it out that way? Why did Hashem not make us the center of the universe? Why did he put this star, which we call the sun, in the center of the universe? But the answer is, and this is an answer I heard once, beautiful! The earth is the third planet. You have Mercury, Venus, and then Earth. Because we are always 3. Istakel be'oraitu bara alma, Kadosh Baruch Hu built the world based on the Torah. And since the Torah is there to be the building blocks of everything, so the world was built in a 3 it's kind of built based on threes, and based on that, the Earth ended up being the third planet because everything is built on Torah. An incredible phenomenon, no coincidence, as I'm sure we are all also familiar with. That's an incredible idea. And the reason why this idea of three, and with this basically clothing, is because the whole entire world was created with what's known as the Sfirot. That's the building blocks in the Kabbalistic worlds of the Sfirot, which are based on threes. There's the Chabad, which is the Chochmah, Bina, and Dat. Then you have the middle, which is the Chesed, Gvur, and Tiferet. And then you have the Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. And then you have Netzach, Hod, Yesod. These are the three bottom ones, which are also, you have a person is made up of a three-tiered body, the bottom, the middle, and the top, and each has a right, left, and center, because absolute shalom, perfection, is three. When you have a right and a left, you have extremes. You have two directions which are two extremes. Check out the government, especially in Eretz Yisrael, when you have the right and the left. The number three always is somewhere in the middle. It's always some type of compromise. As long as the third dot is on the same plane, it's on a different plane, then that third dot is going to compromise those two dots which are too extreme. And that's what you have when you have that third dot. So three is always the epitome of shalom. Like Birkat Kohanim, Ameshuleshet, that's why we have three brachot on the Birkat Kohanim, because they're all epitome of Kedusha and Shalom. Oiseh Shalom b'mermav, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. You need to have a number three. Three is perfection. Three is where you have absolute balance, and three is consistency. And that's why we have a Tanach, which is made of Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. We need to have all three parts of it. That's a beautiful wrap-up. And of course, I'll end with my favorite three of all, is that Baruch Hashem, I am a third child, and so is my wife. Shabbat.